Hi, everyone. Welcome to Career Conversations. I'm Meera Jogasundram. Today we have a guest, a very special guest, and a dear friend of mine, Seema Harikumar. Excuse me. After graduating with a political science degree from the National University of Singapore in 2006, Seema went on to become a conference producer at a leading multinational corporation. She produced conferences and exhibitions across the oil and gas, banking, luxury yachting, and even retail industries over the next 14 years. In a span of 2 years, Seema has achieved significant milestones in this field. Her company's Achievers Club Award in 2022 and 2023, the Million Dollar Roundtable membership in 2023. Now, this is a global standard that identifies high achieving financial advisors. Seema, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Mira.
How are you feeling today?
Good. I'm feeling great. In fact, it's nice to be connecting with you after so many years on this platform. We're thousands of miles away, but we made it happen. So that's great.
Likewise. Now, tell us about your career journey, Seema.
Well, like you said, actually, like I started out in 2006 as a conference producer, not in line with what I studied. I did political science, and the reason I actually became a conference producer was quite interesting because I had applied to civil service jobs, and you would probably know that in civil service. I had attended a few interviews, but it takes a lot. It's a long process because you go through rounds and rounds of interviews. And me being me, I just jumped on the first opportunity that landed on my lap. So I picked up the conference producer role because I really had thought it was interesting. I had always wanted to travel, and this gave me the opportunity to do it. So I jumped on it. Of course, there was a lot of hard work involved. I started out at an MNC, and then 2 years later, I went on to do my own startup. And then after that, I went back to an MNC, and then I moved to a local SME. So there were movements within that 14 years, but yeah, for 14 years, I was actually working across various industries. I mean, serving different industries, but running conferences essentially.
Okay, now what you studied sounds like what you studied has very little with what you actually ended up doing.
That's right.
How do you feel about that?
Well, initially, I mean, I didn't think much of it at the start because the prospects of being a conference producer, the fact that you actually get to travel regionally, you get to project manage, you actually hold a very important role despite being 22 or 23, sounded really nice. Of course, if you ask me now, maybe I mean if I was advising my kid then, and if my kid did something like this, I would definitely tell them to uh, go with, because I chose the course at uni, and it was a course that I was actually passionate about. It's not that I didn't like the course. So I could have given it a shot. I could have actually tried out working in the civil service first, maybe, or pursuing journalism as I had originally set out to, because that's exactly what I wanted to do initially. But then because this opportunity landed on my lap, I thought, okay, I shall do that. And then I enjoyed it. So maybe I didn't give myself a chance, but I have no regrets, to be honest, because I think the first company that I was at, IQPC, gave me a very nice learning curve. They were all about training, so I think it was a perfect first job to be landing, because I had so much training that some of the things that I've learned in my first job are still stuff that I lean back on today when I go back to work. So I think I've picked up lots of like intrinsic lessons from my first job at IQPC. So I don't really regret it.
Now, you mentioned civil service a few times.
Mhm.
What's this thing about joining the civil service? Why the desire? Why did you have the desire?
Because in uni, when I read political science, I actually did many topics uh, on international relations and I did comparative politics, I felt that I could have played a part in policy making if I had joined any one of the stat boards or the ministries. So that was something that I was interested in. I was truly interested in. But I think as I as I look at the trajectory, I realized that what I was really more interested in was to actually make a change, because every time I noticed that I've landed a new job opportunity, whether it was in conferencing or even now, it's always what the prospect that excited me most was the fact that I was building something. So the idea of building a conference is because a conference is there's no actual product. You're basically building an idea, right? You have a topic. You need to go and find speakers. You need to set the scene, and you're creating something out of nothing. And that prospect, I think, kept me excited for so long. So I think the prospect of joining the civil service was exciting when, if I could make a change, if I could be a part of policy making, I think that was the prospect that excited me about civil service and the roles that I was actually interviewing for at that time.
Okay. You have done several career transitions, right? Going by what you have said.
Yes. So, career-wise, yes, for 14 years I was doing conference production, but of course with different companies. There were a total of four companies that I went between, and then now I'm a financial consultant, so a completely different. It's a career switch.
What inspired you to make those transitions?
Right. So in the first MNC, to be honest, I was actually very I was it was because it's my first job, and those who know me would know that I really thrive on excelling, not because that's something that I want for myself, but it's really because I just wanted to be known that I can do this job, right? Like I've only recently realized that I seek a lot of external validation, or at least used to. At the start of my journey, there was a lot of external validation that's required for me to thrive well, and that particular company actually gave me that boost, because there was always a leaderboard, and if you're up there, you get rewards, etc. So that was very exciting. And what happened was, what prompted me to transit, actually that was very naive. Actually, if you ask me, if I could go back in time to my 24-year-old self, I would have said, don't do it, because 2 years in an MNC is not enough to teach you the to teach you everything that you need to actually run your own startup. So I actually ran my own startup for another 2.5 years. And I think that 2.5 years was pretty interesting for me. I was able to actually do well. We did well commercially, but I think what I was not able to do, and I guess because I wasn't equipped with it, was to actually take the company to the next level, or to sort of sustain the growth. And that's obviously because that's all I knew. Like I only had a limited sort of knowledge in that space, and that's when I told myself, no, I think I'm better off going back to working at an organization, at an established organization, because clearly I was not able to take the company forward with whatever knowledge I had. Yeah, so I think so, and that was just me being naive. So if you ask me, was it a career mistake? Yeah, I would say yes, because I would say leaving the MNC so soon, like within 2 years, was not really the best career choice I made.
Well, more than a mistake, it sounds like you learned something,
Yes. Yeah,
and you
definitely.
learned about your limitations,
Yes.
and you learned about what you really want to do or what you really should do and how you should be doing it.
Yes. That's right.
So,
And I learned to appreciate, actually, the appreciate a lot of things that you take for granted when you are working in an established organization.
how challenging was the transition from working for someone to becoming self employed and then working for someone again? Excuse me.
That's interesting. Actually, yeah, I think when you work for someone, I mean, this idea of running your own business, to a large extent, tends to be glorified. People don't see the the amount of hard work, the amount of the amount of how much you have to put in to get up every day to get going. People actually undermine it. Like, I think there's just not enough credit given to business owners, because people just talk about the profits you can make as a business owner, and all of that. Yeah, but nobody sees the behind the scenes. And I still remember, like, I was 24, and I used to be cursing on a Friday night. Why am I sitting here and processing medical claims when I should be out partying with my friends? It's like, because you make those little sacrifices, and those sacrifices are so underrated. And I think, and those are things that I actually then don't take for granted. I don't remember taking sick leave for granted after that, after I went to full-time employment, because you suddenly just value, like, for the 2.5 years that I was running a business, I never took a day of sick leave. So how is it that I can actually just call sick, like, when I go to employment, just because I have that benefit, right? So those are small things that I learned to appreciate while running a business. I think when I actually transited from running my own business to moving into an established company for full-time employment, I think I took a lot of ownership in every project I did, because I started treating it like my own. If this was my company, would I do this? Like, I think my bosses would all say the same thing. They would. I think a lot of times I was given projects to start from the nascent stage, because they knew they could entrust me with an entire business unit. They knew I could. I mean, one of them even said, like, treat this as your own business, because the truth is, they knew that I would be accountable for the business.
So, would you say the changes you made in your career, were they very difficult? Was there a lot of resistance, or was it smooth?
I am generally a very spontaneous person. So if I've made a decision, I don't sit on it for too long. If there is a compelling reason to switch, to transit, and if I can weigh the merits, I would actually transit. So I'm not afraid of starting out in a new environment. And so I found that the shifts were smooth. In fact, I've never sort of felt that my importance was diminished because I moved from self-employment to being an employee of a company. And I think that's because I never, in fact, when I was running a business, it never got to my head that I was running a business. Like, to me, I was doing another job, and I was just trying to get the work done for it, for the purposes of earning an income, for the purposes of getting this project out, and so on. So the purpose was greater than the position. So therefore, it never really affected me whether I was in full-time employment or self-employed.
Would you attribute that to your openness to change? You're very quick to
Yes.
adapt to change.
Yeah, I would
Okay,
say
so
that.
that is a very essential attribute, right?
Definitely. Yeah.
From what you say. Now, if you were given the opportunity to go back in time, given what you know now, what would you do differently? You just graduated from university with a political science degree. What would you do?
Well, I still would go back to my first company, IQPC. I think I would definitely would, because I found that a great starting platform, and I made lots of friends there. Some of them are still friends with me today. I had a great leader, like she was running. She was the MD of the company at that point, and she gave me such good, valuable advice, stuff that I would still talk about till today. And perhaps I would go back to that conversation I had with her, when at the coffee shop, when she said, when she tried to sort of to persuade me not to leave, and she said there are three other positions, and one is in Dubai, one is in London, and one is in our sister company. And I may have actually, I think what I could have done was to actually take that option instead, because if a change was what I was looking for, that was still my safe space, but it would have allowed me to grow, but within boundaries that could have helped me learn more. I didn't have to sort of invest anything besides the fact that I may have to actually uh, move to a different land. Maybe at that point, at 24, leaving your country and going to another country sounded like a bit daunting, because I didn't even do university outside. I was in Singapore all the way, so maybe that prospect sounded daunting. But if I could go back in time, I think I would have taken up that offer.
How do you stay motivated in your career?
That Okay, so staying motivated, I think really is, I think our motivations, we need to find out what drives us. Not Some people are driven by money, some people are driven by you know uh, the sense of achievement they feel every day. Some people, so there are different motivations. For me, at this stage of my life, my purpose, my purpose motivates me, and I have a motivation that's, in my opinion, greater than just paying bills, or my family, for that matter. I have two girls, and to me, I want to be a role model to them, and I think that motivates me. So seeing me get up, go to work, seeing me do well at work, and seeing me being equal with their dad, those are values that I want them to see. I want them to be able to appreciate that, their mom is able to is successful in her career, and I want them to celebrate my wins with me, and that motivates me, I think, at this stage.
Okay, beautiful answer. Now, you mentioned purpose. How aligned is your present career path with your purpose and authenticity?
I so I think this I mean, I came into this career like out of complete. It was actually a bit of an accident, sort of, because it was COVID, and with the restrictions, we weren't able to run events, and so somehow I stumbled into this job. But I realized after actually entering financial planning, that a lot of people actually take this space for granted. A lot of people actually haven't got financial planning in order. And I realized that, with my own experiences, I realized that one of the things that a lot of people end up doing is they they live for the day, and we live like from month to month. There is no real sort of like a plan in place. And I felt that my purpose, I've always been passionate about ensuring that women are, are sort of like are financially stable. They can, I mean, they shouldn't be dependent on their partners or their parents or whoever else for their finances. And so I found that in this job, in my current position, I've met so many women, and I've actually enabled them. I feel like I've enabled them to actually plan their retirement, plan their kids' education, make independent financial decisions, because they know what they're getting into. And that makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel I'm doing something, I'm giving back to society. And a lot of these women are, they don't really need to be underprivileged. I mean, I have women who are professionals, all the way up, right down to like people who are underprivileged, and they have all benefited. And I feel satisfied. I mean, it's one thing that I've told a friend before. You don't, in my previous job, no matter how well you actually run a conference, nobody thanks you for it. But in this job, I get a lot of thank yous, and I think that's very satisfying.
So, empowering women fulfills you.
Yeah, certainly, because I mean, you see, the thing is that I have seen many women in my life, being dependent on their spouses, or on their family members for their financial, to make financial decisions. And I've always felt that it is important for, even if they, I mean, work aside, whether they're working or not, but they should be able to understand and appreciate what financial planning is, and that will enable them to make some decisions and be on par with their spouse, or whoever else, to actually like make important financial decisions. And I think my job enables me to do that.
Tell us more about what you do now.
So right now, I'm a senior financial consultant at Great Eastern. So we have a range of products, like from life insurances all the way up to like wealth accumulation products. I focus specifically on retirement planning, and I think it's a huge market, because frankly speaking, we need to start planning for our retirement the day we start working. That's the truth. And people always associate retirement with an age, but I feel that retirement is actually a lifestyle you enjoy, and the earlier you start planning for it, the you know the I mean, the earlier you can retire, or you can, you don't really need to work till a certain age before you actually start enjoying the benefits. So I work a lot with youngsters and with mid-career professionals on their retirement planning.
How do you think you can increase awareness among the young, especially, about the need to plan for retirement?
Well, so right now, I obviously am active on social media, because I think that's the one way to actually access youngsters. The youngsters, I realize, I mean, I know I hate to say youngsters because it suddenly makes me feel old when I'm not.
Both of us are young, Seema. We are talking
Absolutely,
about the
yes.
younger people.
Yeah, so the millennials, yeah, so I think those who are joining the workforce, and I mean, this is a mistake that I made when I first got access to money, right? I think because very often in many families, um we don't really discuss money openly. It's not a dinner table conversation. Nobody sits down and talks about, okay, so how are you, what's your income, and how many percent of it are you going to set aside, what are you going to do with this, are you going to invest some of these? We don't have such discussions, and I think that's the problem, because the topic about money is not it's not a comfortable topic for anyone. People just, they people shy away from talking about it. So I think increased conversations about money, about and not making it seem like it's such a private matter. Yes, it is private. I mean, how much you earn is definitely private. But I think what you do with your money, if you don't talk about it, you're not going to get options before you. Or if you're averse to that conversation, then you're getting nowhere with it. So I think we need to be start as a society. I think we need to start getting more open about talking about money, and parents should sort of talk about I mean, financial literacy should become a conversation that people have comfortably at home.
You are absolutely right. It starts at home. But what do you think about schools? Presently, schools around the globe, they don't play any role in financial education. No
That's
one
true.
teaches you how to invest from young or
Yeah,
save. Or,
yeah.
what do you think about that?
I agree, because frankly speaking, I don't know why it's a gap, or why it's limited to a certain sector of society to actually just learn it at school, and then after that go out. I mean, so people like us learn it, and then we come out and try and educate society. But the point is, it's too late, because you see, when I try to have a conversation about investing or about saving, people's mindsets are already fixed. Some people are just so averse to investing because they're like, oh no, it's risk that I just don't want to take. People, there are educated professionals who don't understand the impact of inflation. So, and that's it's, so I feel that if there was that initiation at school, at home, and if people don't are not so covered about money, then I think we would shift as a society, because it is important. And somehow, I mean, of course, because being in Singapore, a lot of youngsters feel that, yeah, I mean, yes, I do have provident fund, and there is money that's going there, but nobody knows what's happening with their money that goes there, or nobody even has an idea that if they've not even done the calculation to see whether that's enough for them in retirement. And of course, the youngsters these days, I notice, are also on the YOLO mindset. So you only live once. So they're more concerned about traveling the world, taking sabbaticals, working for like a short period and then doing their own startups. So and all this is great. I mean, it's great that you're trying to fuel your dreams, but I think then it's more important to actually have a conversation about money, because if you decide to go on a sabbatical 5 years down the road, are you able to afford not drawing a salary for that period? Where is your money going to come from? So those are conversations that that really need to get started, like you said, at the school level.
Perhaps it is not introduced to the students or to our younger generation from a young age to preserve the gap,
Potentially.
between the wealthy, not so wealthy, and very not wealthy. Who
Yeah.
knows, right?
Yeah.
So it's up to us to educate ourselves and acquire whatever knowledge is useful to us specifically.
That's right.
Now, how might one approach you or seek your help?
Well, I make myself actually very available on social media. So, of course, I advise out of Singapore, but I've got I do actually, there are a few geographies that we can actually serve, and people contact me when on Instagram. Most of my inquiries come from Instagram or LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and recently I've also launched my TikTok page. But so these
Wow.
are, social media is another, is a space. And I try to actually, to be honest, what I've done is I've tried to make these bite-sized videos just to make simple, I mean, these complex financial terms simple for someone to understand, so that they at least they appreciate that, okay, well, I know what dollar cost averaging means, or I know what total debt servicing ratio means. And they at least there's some interest. I'm just hoping to actually pique the interest of people, so that they become more aware when these terms, when they come across these terms.
Excellent. You have come this far. Looking back, how important has planning been at each stage of your career?
Planning in which sense?
Um, Throughout your career journey, how
Mhm.
much of planning you did or did not do, and how it has impacted you or how important it has been?
I think so. I am a planner by nature. So as much as I'm spontaneous, I also ensure that I actually think through the plan, right? So I do know that both my career transitions happened uh, between both the birth of both my babies. So that's how much I plan. Like, I ensured that there was a 4-year gap between the two of them, so that I can actually do well. I mean, I'm comfortable at a job before I actually have the second one, and so on. So I think as women, we tend to have to plan more because of, I mean, this biology, but also because I feel sometimes people, especially with the family, there was I had many challenges as a full-time working mom, like when my babies were young, right? And I had to ensure that I was actually in a company that allowed for me to actually uh, still sort of work, but have like the flexibility while I worked. So I had to plan that, definitely. So I think I definitely planned my kids around my job transitions. In fact, this transition from conference producer to financial consultant was also a plan because of my kids, because they were going to school. I wanted to have more time with them. This job comes with a known amount of flexibility, and therefore I'm therefore able to participate in their daily affairs, and yet not compromise on work. In the same way, I think when I started at an MNC and I moved to my own startup, I knew that, like, I had to be in, as in my work style, a small startup setup doesn't work for me. I had to be in an established company with the right infrastructure. So it's about knowing yourself. It's about knowing what works for you and what doesn't work for you. If you're the sort who is willing to who's happy to do everything, like all the different functions, and pick up from where everyone's left off, then yes, maybe small setups would work for you. Uh, there are people who earn a lot more in small setups because they're doing many jobs at the same time. But for someone like me, I needed that structure. I need an infrastructure. I need to have a HR to run to if I need something. And so if you need a more sophisticated structure, then a bigger company would work for you. And these are things that unfortunately don't come taught at school as well. So you end up having to learn it as you go. And some people do better at it early. Some people still are still finding their way, like 20 years in after working. But I mean, everyone owns their own journey, and I think that's important, like to identify what works for you, which environment keeps you happy, because at the end of the day, where you're working contributes to at least one third of your day. And if you're not happy there, then there's just, then what are we working for?
Very well said, Seema. And you said knowing what is good for you. Now, branching off from that, what would you say to someone who has just graduated from university and with optimism looking at the world and looking for a job? What would you tell him or her?
I would first ask them to analyze themselves, look within to see what really truly motivates him or her, because we all have different factors that drive us to get up and go to work, or to get up and do a certain job. And if you find out what your driving forces are, what actually drives you, like, are you the sort who's driven by money? Are you driven by that sense of achievement? Are you driven by learning? Are you driven because you just want sort of peer validation? If so, you have to find out what drives you, and then that would help you narrow down the environment that you want to work in, because that environment that you work in is so important. If you're in an environment that doesn't suit you, in time to come it becomes toxic. In time to come, it causes you to be depressed, because work is hard. I mean, wherever you go, but people are willing to work hard for certain people, or for certain organizations, or certain causes, because they believe so much in it. And that's because they're driven to do it. There is a passion to do it. If you don't find that driving force, then it becomes very difficult to get the job done. So I think the journey starts from looking within first, before looking for the right job outside.
So beautifully put. You have to find out what lights you up from within,
Yeah.
be true to yourself, and follow through with what
Yes.
your intuition tells you, not
Ab-
leave it halfway. Is that what
Absolutely.
you're trying to say?
Yes, yes, and I think you have to give it time. To be honest, I feel like we are in this space which is so quick to celebrate winners, but we forget that there is actually a journey that they take. The path that they take may not always be up. It is a cycle, right? Every behind every winner there is some story of a failure. In fact, I read somewhere recently that to fail is actually your first attempt in learning, and that's what it stands for. So because we are in this generation of instant gratification, instant, we want everything instantly, we tend to actually just celebrate the winners, but not the path that people have taken. And if you're looking for a job to make you happy, it may not happen in the first. In fact, in the first 3 months, a lot of quitters quit their jobs in the third month. So like that, because I don't think they've given time to actually absorb what is required of them. So I think time is also another key factor.
So it's the journey that molds the character, not the destination, right?
Absolutely.
Just like the journey has molded you into such a successful woman. Okay, now you are also a professional Indian classical dancer,
Yeah.
choreographer, and teacher. How do you handle everything? A family, two daughters, a career, dance?
I can tell you very honestly, Mira, this idea of juggling and multitasking is over glorified in our society. Okay, I mean, like, we all know that a specialist earns much more than a generalist. And so but then again, having said that, I have always I mean, I've always sort of like uh, found myself being drawn to dance, because it kind of balances me. You see, I would describe myself as this creative, enthusiastic, energetic person. and I have just so much to actually just uh, expel out of me sometimes. And sometimes a corporate environment doesn't give you that space. I mean, I can't go dancing into my office, or waltzing in front of my a client. They probably would not take me seriously. So I need that space, and I think that dance has always given me that freedom to express. And because of that, I've found it so captivating, and it's always been something that I've leaned on to just create that balance in my life. And so because of that, I perform whenever I have the opportunity to perform, and I'm not the only one who's doing it semi professionally. I do have friends who are in my in my age, at my age group, who feel that, okay, look, I want to do this part time for various other reasons. Now, teaching is something that I've always sort of enjoyed. I like mentoring people. I like teaching, and I enjoy paying it forward. So when my teacher passed away, I felt that I needed to, pay it forward, because she was. I mean, she was basically someone who built Indian dance in Singapore. She's like a pioneer, and I felt that, like, as her student, the least I could do is to actually inspire the next generation. So and that's what I'm doing. So yeah, like, I find time. I mean, frankly speaking, time is what you make for yourself, right? And there is always time if you want to find time, if you want to make time.
I think what you're doing is absolutely admirable. And I
Thank
don't think
you.
it should be underplayed. The sacrifices you make to dance and to, attend to your career and your family at the same time.
Yeah, but it
So
also takes a very understanding family. It takes a village to raise a family. So I think I shouldn't take the credit away from them. I've got a good support system at home, so that helped. I mean, that takes the burden off me sometimes. And then my girls, thankfully, at least at this stage of their lives, are interested in dance, so I can bring them to my dance class.
that's lovely.
Yeah, and note, the operative word here is at this stage of their lives. So
Of course, of course. So, would you say that it is crucial to have an interest, passion, or hobby apart from your career, going by what you've described?
absolutely. I think we all, I mean, of course, some people, like my husband, is, he loves his job. So that's his passion. He can't see anything beyond it. So there are people like that too. But, for people like me, I am able to sort of, delineate, this is my job, and this is my passion. And some of us can't make our passion our careers. So so therefore, I just think that it's a nice this is a nice balance to have. I get the best of both worlds.
Okay. Now, last question, Seema. What's your definition of owning your career?
I think owning your career should be more about what sort of an identity your career has given you, rather than the achievements. I think the achievements will follow. So very often we talk about how much someone's achieved in their career, how far they've gone up in the corporate ladder. But if your career is all about that, then you may turn out to be somebody you aren't essentially at the core. So what is important is to remember, is to see what you become because of your career. It's the becoming, that process of becoming that person that you identify most with, uh, and that your career allowing you to become that person, versus what you've achieved. So it's not what you've achieved, but how you've achieved it. And if you stay true to yourself, and you've actually developed your identity around your career, then that's owning your career. It shouldn't go based on your accolades. The accolades will follow.
So, in essence, what you're saying is constantly striving to become and becoming the best version of yourself
Yes.
in your career.
Yeah.
That would be owning your career.
Yes.
That is so refreshing. Thank you so much, Seema, for sharing your thoughts,
Thank you.
sharing
Thank
your
you for having
story.
me.
sharing your experience and your invaluable insights. It was a pleasure having you.
Likewise, it's a pleasure talking to you. You brought me down memory lane.
Well, I'm glad. I hope it's positive memories.
Yes.
Yeah. Now that you mentioned memory lane, what impact does this session have on you? Talking about all these things.
I think, it's made me take stock of what's happened in the last 15 years. Actually, to be honest, like, we don't normally sit down and do this to ourselves. We should sit down and do a timeline. It's also very timely that it's the end of the year. But I think it's given me an opportunity to see what I've done, and yeah, we and celebrate the small wins.
Celebrate every win, big
Yes,
or small.
big or small, absolutely.
And how do you feel after talking about all your achievements and your journey and the obstacles?
I think it makes it a lot more meaningful being in this space at this time of my life. I am glad I'm actually here now as opposed to maybe 10 years ago, because I bring a very different me to this role, and because of that I think I'm like you said, a better version of myself to my clients, and I think I'm grateful for that.
Excellent. Thank you for being with us. Viewers, if you'd like to reach out to Seema to see how she can help you or for any other purpose, all the details are in the description attached to this post. And till we meet again.